This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good evening, Rabbi. So we're learning Sefer Shaarei Teshuvah. We're learning the Shaar, the fifth ingredient of Teshuvah. And the fifth ingredient is da'aga.
What?
Da'aga. Da'aga means worry. That means you should be worried about your averos. Why should you be worried? If you do Teshuvah, you erase them. Why should you be worried about them? Well, there are certain averos that even if you do Teshuvah is not enough. Let's say if someone is over a lav, then you need Teshuvah together with Yom Kippur. Meanwhile, it's not Yom Kippur yet. So a person should be worried, well, in the meantime, I have something looming over my head. Now, if a person is over a mitzvah aseh, then Teshuvah alone atones for it immediately. That's what the Gemara says in Yuma. But a lav requires Yom Kippur also. And certain lavin, even with Yom Kippur, it's not enough. A person needs Yisurim. So therefore, when a person does an Aveira, they should have a certain degree of worry. Oivei, there's something looming. Says Rabbi Yoina, Hada'aga, what is worry? Ki yidag, you should worry, v'yifgad, and v'yifchad me'oina shavoinosav, and be afraid of the punishment for the sin. Ki yesh avoinos shehatshuva toila kaparasam. There are some Averos that Teshuvah suspends atonement. V'yisurin memarkin, but you need tribulation, suffering to purge it. And this concept, this ingredient of Teshuvah is enunciated by David HaMelech. The pasuk says, Ki havoini agid, I will speak my sin, edag mechatasi, I'm worried from my avera. Now the question is, we already had this. Yagoin. Yagoin is sorrow. What's the difference between sorrow and worry? The answer is sorrow is about the past. Worry is for the future. It says Rabbi Yoina, Ve'inyan hayagoin al sha'avar. The other ingredient, we had the ingredient number 3, which was yagoin. That's over the past. Ve'inyan hada'aga al hasid. Va'oid shenis, another thing to worry about. The first thing to worry about is that there are other, you did avera, you did Teshuvah, but there are other requirements sometimes. Sometimes you need Yom Kippur, sometimes you need Chas V'Shalom Yisurim. Va'oid shenis yadag, you should also be worried that you think you did Teshuvah, but maybe your Teshuvah was lacking. Maybe you didn't do a sufficient Teshuvah. That's another thing that should concern. Exactly. Part of Teshuvah is being worried, maybe I didn't do a sufficient job. Now imagine if a person was in a very dangerous situation, and the only way he could get out of it is to file certain paperwork that he could extricate himself from it. So he's going to fill it out. He may go to someone who could help him, but he might be worried, did I fill it out properly? Because so too a Teshuvah. Yeah, Teshuvah atones, but that's if you do a correct Teshuvah. Another thing to worry is ulai hu mekatzir b'choivas Teshuvah. Maybe you shortchanged your Teshuvah, b'tsar, in terms of the pain that you felt, uv'meriros, and your bitterness, uv'tsoim, and in fasting, uv'vchi. V'hagam ki hirba tsar v'hirba beche. Now you have it on the sheets, on the second line. Even if you were in great pain and you cried a lot, that's very nice, you cried a lot, but maybe the sin was so terrible that you did not fulfill your requisite requirement of Teshuvah. Yizchal v'yira ulai le'umazeh hirba ashba. Maybe your sin was so terrible. V'loi hishlam chukai as kol unoisai. Maybe you didn't fulfill your quota. So you said, fulfill my quota, I didn't have it. I spoke Lashon Hara, fine. But after that, I felt terrible. And I even fasted. And I even cried. Well, what more do I need to do? No. When a person understands the tremendous responsibility that we as creations have to our Creator, and how vicious and insidious it is to rebel against God. The more service that you offer God and the more Teshuvah you do, should be small in your eyes. In other words, someone who thinks he did enough Teshuvah, it's because he doesn't appreciate how much Avodas Hashem is required of him. But if someone who appreciates, that's why one of the ingredients of Teshuvah is, no matter how much Teshuvah you do, always be concerned maybe it wasn't enough. That's Teshuvah. Teshuvah is to think, maybe I didn't do it properly. That's an ingredient of Teshuvah. Well, as soon as you think you did it properly, because the truth is, there is no ein l'davar seif. So at least to feel ein l'davar seif. You have to feel that there's no cap on how much a person needs to put in effort into doing Teshuvah. V'yamar Shlomo HaMelech alav hashalom, Shlomo said, Chacham Shaarei v'sar meira. A wise man is afraid and he turns away from evil. Which means that a wise man, Rabbi Yonah interprets this pasuk in a novel way. Even when he turns away from evil with all of his strength, he's still afraid maybe he did not fulfill his requirement. In other words, Chacham Shaarei v'sar meira. That a wise man, even if he avoids Avera, he always feels maybe I haven't done enough. That's a very, right? Even though you would think you read the pasuk. A wise man is afraid, and therefore he turns away from evil. No. A wise man, even though he turns away from evil, still he's afraid. Rabbi Yonah cites... What?
He turns away from evil in the first place.
Right? He didn't do the... No, he didn't... This is after the Avera. He didn't do it again, right? And now we're saying, and he's afraid maybe he didn't fulfill his quota. Okay. And says Rabbi Yonah a few lines down, the end of this pasuk proves that this is the concept of the pasuk. The pasuk doesn't mean to say a wise man is afraid and therefore he turns away from evil. It means a wise man is never confident that he's fulfilled his requirement, right? Like it says, Pischuli Shaarei tzedek avayvam aideka zeh Shaar Hashem. What's the Shaar Hashem? Pischuli. When you feel like you're always at the Pesach, you're only at the Pesach, you're only at the Pesach. Someone who feels he's only at the Pesach and he hasn't entered, so then that is a siman on a great person. Or like they say by, Ba'gadol heichel uva'katan chila. Ba'katan heichel. Right? Ba'gadol heichel. Which means like this. Right? Ba'gadol heichel. A gadol is someone who feels he's only starting. But a va'katan, a small person, is kila. Because a small person thinks he already accomplished. Okay. And the end of the pasuk says, but the fool, uksil mesaber ubayteach. Which means the fool is the opposite of chacham. The fool is confident. In other words, the pasuk means that uksil mesaber. The fool violates, but he's confident. In other words, despite the fact that the fool has violated, he's confident he won't sin. Even though he knows he's liable to sin, because he did. Nevertheless, he's confident that he won't. But a wise man, he doesn't sin, and he's still worried that he may. So that's
Does that mean that a fool, it's easier for him to get Teshuvah?
We're saying that the midah of the fool is he thinks that he's confident it won't happen, even though his past track record doesn't give him reason to be confident. But it's the midah of foolishness to be confident that you've done what you need to do. On the other extreme, the midah of chachma is to constantly be worried, maybe I have not done enough. And then, and maybe we'll elaborate next time, the third thing that the Baal Teshuvah should worry about is perhaps he should worry, not only did he not do a requisite Teshuvah, Baal Teshuvah should always worry, he might do it again. In other words, even if a person, let's say a person did an Avera and he did a full Teshuvah, and now he's a big tzaddik. He says now, like the Rambam says, I'm a different guy, I'm a different person, umashana shemai. Nevertheless, it is appropriate to always, never to trust yourself.
Obviously that doesn't make sense.
Don't trust yourself. Don't think you can't do it again. Anybody is the moment you think that you're immune to the Yetzer Hara, that's the moment the Yetzer Hara has you in his grasp.
No, but the idea of Teshuvah is that he's going to concentrate that he won't do it again.
No, all Teshuvah is, you have to reach the level that God could testify that you won't do it again. But in your heart, you always have to be worried, maybe I will do it again, and therefore you always have to set the appropriate safeguards to make sure that you won't. Okay? Rabbi, thank you for coming. Bye.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.